Hi there, welcome to the channel. My name's Shane. Today we'll be taking you through the process of removing all of the components necessary to get to the valve chest of a David Brown 990 tractor. I'll be putting chapter markers all along the video here of all of the different parts of the removal process. So if you'll go down to the description, you'll be able to see all of those different sections labeled, and you can jump ahead or jump around to those various individual parts. This video is going to be fairly long. It'll be over an hour in length. There will be a lot of edits and a lot of cuts, but I think all of the relevant pieces and parts of removal of the components getting to the valve chest here will be covered. So if you want to see how this comes apart, stay with me. I'll start by going through the various components that we'll have to take off to get the valve chest out of the right hand side here. We'll start over here on the left side. The ram cylinder is down in here. This is the casting for the ram cylinder. It fits inside of the axle. There are 6 bolts, I believe. Yes, 6 bolts. There are the top 2 here that are through bolts that are shorter. There are these 2 bolts on either side that are through bolts. They're very long bolts. And then down here there are 2 bolts for the bottom part. They're threaded holes that screw in. This is the latching handle for latching the arms in an upright position. I will have to change an O-ring out in here because it is leaking right there underneath. In order to get this shaft off, you do need to take the sensing unit off of the top of the PTO housing here. That's pretty easy. I've mentioned that in a previous video. There are only 6 bolts. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you take it off. This cable is connected to the side of the sensing unit about right there. You basically back this nut off right here and then unscrew this out of there's a threaded insert on the side of the sensing unit that this just threads out of. It's really easy. So sensing unit does have to come off for this ram shaft. I've heard some people call it a rock shaft, but this is the ram shaft that the arms are attached to. So we've got the ram cylinder, the left-hand cover, the latching handle, ram shaft or rock shaft, and I've heard some people call it. Then over here we have the right hand ramshaft bracket. We'll have to take this cover out and take the internals out of there first so we don't break anything while we're removing all of this. Has 2 bolts here and 2 bolts under here to remove. Then we will walk around here and take a look. The quadrant, this is the control lever quadrant, has to come off. Remove these 4 bolts for the rate of lowering valve connection. This controls how fast or slow the arms lower down. And there are 2 bolts inside of here, and then 1 bolt. See if I can get a good visual of it. Then 1 bolt right there. You see it? That is a bear to get to. And we have to be under the I have to be under the tractor. The way I do it is I get up under the tractor and with a ratcheting wrench. I'll show you that in a little while. Get on top of it and back it out. That's an aggravating bolt to get out. We also have to remove that spring pin, I guess is what that's called. That spring pin right there. The parking brake runs up through the control lever quadrant, and we have to remove that pin so that we can remove the quadrant. Those are the major components of disassembly that are needed to get this all disassembled or removed. I'll have to figure out a way to hook my engine hoist up to this. I think I'll just use a kind of a strap system, maybe a chain or two, shorten it up so that I can get a hold of this right here and keep it controlled as I remove it. Doing this manually is very much an involved process. You will need help if you don't have anything to lift this with. This is a solid piece of metal, and it is very, very heavy because it goes all the way through it over here, and when this whole casting comes out and the valve chest comes out. Oh yeah, before I forget, you also have to back off of this about 7 or 8 turns. There is a lube pipe that goes into the side of the valve chest, right inside of this, right inside the housing here. It's a lube pipe that goes into the side of the valve chest that has to be slacked off so that you can slide the valve chest out. All right. I think we'll start by removing the quadrant right here. We'll start by taking all of this apart and going through that process. So this is a roll pin at the bottom of the parking brake, or the parking brake lever, and it needs to be driven out of the bottom of the parking brake lever, and this will just fall out. I tried doing this with a regular punch, and it started rounding over the hole a little bit, but I finally got smart and went and picked me up a set of these things. Let me see if I can get it right. Roll pin punches. I didn't know they existed. They have a round spot on them. Let's see if I can get this. There you go. Round with a kind of a ledge so it doesn't deform a roll pin or spring pin. Let's see, I think I'm gonna need the biggest one if I remember correctly. Yeah, and it just fits right nicely in there. It doesn't slip nearly as bad as just using a regular punch, and I've been quite happy with it. If this is the first time that you've taken this off, it may take quite a bit of hammering and beating on this. It did for the first time that I did this. It was rusted in there pretty solid. I had to soak it in penetrating fluid for a long time. I used PB Blaster on it to try to soak it, and then I worked it. I'd beat on it one way, then I'd come around from the other side, beat on it, come over here and beat on it the other way, and just try to get it moving in the bore. And I was finally able to get it. And the other issue you're going to have to worry about is this dang parking brake wants to twist on you. Every time you hit it, it wants to move. I could clamp it up there, I guess. I may do that if this thing continues to roll on me. I didn't think about that the first time I did this. Yeah. Okay. In the hole now. That's good. This is just a weird angle. It's out. Where did it go? Oh my goodness. Thankfully, it's out. See? Roll pin. Oh. All right, let's put that somewhere where I won't lose it. I'll set it right up here on the footrest. Oh. That fell out and ran right under the tire. See, this just fits right up in through here for the brakes, to pull on the brakes. And I gotta grab that washer thing from under the tire. But anyway, I'll give you a closer look at the hole. Here you go. This thing's gonna be in the way quite a bit. So I ran and grabbed me some wire, and I'm just gonna take and pull this up right here. Let me get a shadow there where you can see. Just wire it up just like that. While I'm down here, I'm going to try and get that annoying little bolt out of the bottom of the quadrant. Do you see that bolt right there where my finger's pointing? As soon as I move my hand out of the way, it'll refocus, I hope. I'm getting the focusing mechanism on there. You see that bolt? I have these cool wrenches called gear that have a ratcheting mechanism inside the closed end there. And what I do is just hang it off of that bolt, and then I've got just enough room to move that back and forth enough to engage the ratchet a couple of places. Try and do this to where you can see. Oh, that's only. It's like a USB port. You never get it right the first time or the second time. Just like so. And there's just enough room. I'm sorry that this camera work is horrible. I'm in a confined space here. There we go. You just hang it off of the bolt and you work it as little as you can, a little bit at a time, to get that bolt slackened off. Let me just try to work it through the camera here. It's just enough where you can work it. Gotta get your finger in the open end. And keep your head out of the way, because this thing falls and it's going to hit you right in the eyeball. This is a 1/2 inch wrench, by the way. But it's loose now, at least. It'll come on the way. It'll start coming on the way out now. And it comes out. You can see the hole right there. See if I can get that focused. Focus, you phone. All right, that's the hole it came out of. There's the bolt. It's best to do all this stuff while you're down here. Everything else this is pretty much the only stuff you'll have to get to under the tractor is this bolt and removal of the pin here. I think you could get to this bolt a little bit easier up top if you took the quadrant pieces off up here, the shroud and all this kind of stuff, this white thing, whatever it's called. I think you could take all that apart and get to this bolt maybe a little bit easier, but I'm not taking all that apart just yet. Yeah, while you're down here getting this pin out, take that bolt out. Remove the cover from the control lever housing. This is attached by 4 screws and must be removed complete with the lowering control knob. That's the lowering control knob right there. Bolt number 1. This should slide right off. You can see it. It's a slot. It's got a slot there that fits over the valve in there. I'll give you a better view of this once I get everything disassembled here. It's a front plate over the quadrant housing. Set it in a safe place. There's a gasket there. It's supposed to be a cork gasket, but I did a paper gasket. It's okay. Put some gasket sealer on it. There is a bit of oil in here, so be careful of that. This is the Nyloc nut, and you remove it from the connecting link. Let's see what size it's supposed to be. 1/2 inch. This is one of the adjustment points of once you get all of this back together. This has specific instructions on how to adjust this nut. It's best to use the instructions that are on the David Brown Tractor Club website. I'll show you all that once I start putting it all back together. What did I just drop? All right, there's the nut. There's the nut, a washer, and a distance piece. Okay, here's your good view of inside of the Quadrant housing. This hole right here is the hole that the lowering control knob shaft goes through. This is the shaft that the connecting link that goes back to the valve chest. And there's the bolt right here, has to be removed, and this bolt right here has to be removed in order for this Quadrant housing to be removed from the tractor. We've already removed the bottom bolt, and so we'll get busy on that. These are 1/2-inch bolt heads. 1/2-inch socket, we'll take it right off. Let's get this to where I can work it by hand. That bolts out. What I'm doing is I'm holding up on the I'm holding the lever itself so this thing doesn't fall. And it's off. Okay, so there is a distance piece that was on right here behind the other one. There's actually 2 distance pieces in here. There's one on each side of that housing that went in there. I'll show you that here in a little bit. But there is this spring as well. So we have on the back side of that housing, we have these 2 pieces. We have the spring and that distance piece. It's exactly the same size as the other one that came out of there. Just be careful when you're removing this, that distance piece may pop off and go down to the floor or something. In my case, I had hold of the control lever to keep it from falling down through this hole down here. It popped off with that spring, popped it off and put it down in the bottom of the casting, and I found it when I was over there on the table. So yeah, be careful. That right there, well, let me get you back in the right spot. This part right there, that's that lowering control valve that goes into the valve chest. You have the 2 bolts for the feed that goes into the valve chest, and this right here is the connecting arm, connecting link. Those 2 bolts need to come off, and you can see the front of the valve chest right there. And there's a good view, I think. You can see it. You see that brass looking fitting right there? That is the lube pipe that goes into the side of the valve chest that that bolt right there keeps in place. The manual says to release the lock nut on there that's up against the casting there, and then unscrew this bolt about 8 turns to give enough clearance for that to back off and back out of the valve chest and be able to remove the valve chest. When you're removing this valve chest, it's best to have a second set of eyes out here on this side of the tractor when you're taking all this out to make sure nothing hangs up. Once you've got the quadrant disconnected and moved over to a place where you can do some inspection on it, you'll see how all this is put together. This is the hole that the connecting link goes through, right there. There are 2 distance pieces associated with this connecting link, or connecting rod. One goes in the back on the connecting rod and spring, then a distance piece, and you slide this on, and then another distance piece goes into the front, then lock washer and nut. This piece is held in place by this parking brake. Parking brake shaft has a pawl in a shaft that runs at an angle up through right here. There's a hole right here, and the parking brake pawl and spring behind it run at an angle up through into the housing here somewhere. On, I think, newer tractors, newer 990s, there's actually a hole right here somewhere where you can actually, I think, grease that spring and pawl mechanism for the parking brake, but this tractor doesn't have that hole. When I took this apart about a year ago to do just a general cleanup, general maintenance on it, just getting all the gunk off of it, it was caked up by half an inch or so of gunk and nastiness all around here. Pressure washed it. I need to do it again. I may take this thing apart, but I don't know. The friction ring here on, I think the friction ring is right there, I think. Yeah, I need to possibly just tighten these up to make it a little bit tighter. Or maybe I need to replace the friction ring altogether. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, this is the quadrant and the control lever, the housing that goes along with it. First thing I'm going to do here is take this parking brake back out. Basically, you turn it to where the teeth here won't engage with the pawl, and it just slides right out. Easy peasy. Now then, can you see, let me get my light. You see down in there, you see that thing sticking out right in there? That is the pawl that engages on the parking brake lever. I'm going to try to remove that. Feels like I'm about to do surgery here. First time I took this thing apart to get all this cleaned up, my parking brake did not work. This pawl mechanism was seized down in that hole, and I used tons of PV Blaster penetrating fluid, this stuff right here, to try to break it free. I'd take a punch and I'd go through right here in this hole and tap, 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 just trying to get it to move and get it to compress down on the spring a little bit, trying to get some movement going in it. And that finally did work. I was able to get in the hole here with a pair of needle nose and finally get it to move just a little bit. Got it to work free enough to where I could get, again, the needle nose and pop it out. Then once you get that out, all you need to do is reach down in here with a pick or something, and grab the spring that's behind that pawl. As you can see, I greased it the last time I was in here last year. All right, this is as far as I'm going to disassemble this as of right now with this video. The quadrant is off. If you would like to disassemble this, I may video that, I may not. I don't know just yet. Yeah, this is the quadrant and the control lever. These two bolts hold on this pressure pipe connection to the front of the valve chest. So we'll take these two bolts off. 9/16. Take care not to lose them. Down in the bottom of the axle casting. That was on there. Okay. There is a washer, a lock washer associated with that. Just back that off with my fingers. Leaving a few threads in. I can use my fingers to take it out such that I don't drop it. You will have to fish it out if you drop it. Same length of bolt on both of those. There are two O-rings behind there that I will be replacing. One of the major reasons I'm taking this apart is I put the wrong size O-rings in there. I put the wrong hardness and thickness O-rings in there when I put this thing back together about a year ago. I'll bag and tag those bolts and be done with that. Everything on the front of the valve chest here is now disconnected. All right, now we're going to tackle the lubrication pipe bolt here that holds that lube pipe in place. This is a 1/2 inch lock nut and a 1/2 inch bolt head. Get the lock nut loosened off a little bit. Make sure that bolt is still fairly tight on the lube pipe inside. So yeah, it's tight. All right. So the book says to loosen this nut approximately 8 turns. So that would be about 16 half turns. Get on there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and we'll just go to 15 and see what that looks like. 15, so that's 7.5 turns. Said approximately 8, and I think I read somewhere on the forums, Rolik and Erky and some of those guys on the forums said something around 7.5. But don't quote me on that, I don't have it in front of me, and it's been a little while since I've read that. For some reason, 7.5 or so sticks in my mind. All right, the top of this housing on the right-hand side is where the bypass and hold valve live. Those are 1/2 inch bolts I've got in there. I lost one of the, it's usually supposed to have screws like this in there, but I lost them. I lost one of them, so I just replaced it with some bolts. I need to get that. I don't care about this thing being exactly 100% original. This isn't a show tractor or anything. This is a working tractor. Maybe one day it'll be a show tractor. I do not have a dump valve fitted on this tractor. Take that little plate off. There we go. Bypass valve, hold valve. DB2B on the David Brown Tractor forums, one of the experts there, told me several years ago in a forum post, I had posted on trying to figure out a way to get these bypass and hold valve plugs out of the top without messing up the slots even more than they already are. We have tried a big old flat-headed screwdriver like this, but it's just not enough to fill the slot. And there's a potential there for damage of the slot even more just trying to use this screwdriver. So what he told me was to use something called a drag link socket. Here is an example of a drag link socket. I ordered a couple of these off Amazon several years ago. I had to modify this one a bit, grind off a little bit off the sides to get it to fit snugly in the slot. Basically, it's a 1/2 inch drive socket for removing drag links, I think off of car suspensions, and it fits in the slot very well. I know there's probably not enough light down in there to see this, but it fits down in the slot for these plugs really well, engages with the full slot. And then I hooked up a impact gun to the top up here and a couple of Ugga-Duggas and, well, Ugga, not really a Dugga, on the backwards, and it popped right loose. Yeah, these were really stuck when I tried to get them off the first time that I was investigating this thing to clean up. It took me a little bit to figure out how to get them off, but it worked out really well. This is basically the damage that had been done to it before I got a hold of it, and I haven't made it any worse, at least. So that's just an idea for you guys. If you're interested in taking off your bypass and hold valves, use a drag link socket. You might have to modify it a bit to fit down in the slot a little bit like I did, but yeah, worked out really nice. Okay, the next thing we're going to do here is remove the cover off the right hand bracket so that we can get in and remove the innards, the internals here, so we don't mess anything up. It's not a difficult process. Sorry if I bumped the camera. I want to give a good view of this. And that plate just comes right off. And you should be able to see the insides here of the different mechanisms of the selector that makes up a Select-O-Matic tractor. This piece right here is the height control push rod. It operates off this cam. As the ram goes up and down, this cam pushes down on this height control push rod. This is depth control. This piece right here, this bar, this is the cable that comes through from the sensing unit, and it connects over here with these two nuts. I kind of lock nutted together. Let me see if I can get in there real quick. Operate this thing. You see how as the sensing unit, the cable will pull this, it causes that depth control push rod to go down, pulling on that spring. There is a piece of metal sticking out that goes into the depth control push rod here that causes it to pivot down. First thing we're going to do, though, is disconnect that spring. So first step is to remove this spring here, which will remove the tension from this bar, this thing right here. Sorry, I don't know the proper names for these things. Then once you've done that, you can get in there and get a hold of those two nuts with a wrench. Once that's removed the tension, you can pull this out just a hair. Yes. 5/16. Let me go grab another 5/16. This is annoying. Patience, Shane. Patience. Have patience. Do not start acting like a fool. Okay. There we go. It's just, oh my gosh, you got to get a little bit of purchase on it. Get it in the right spot. Holy moly. That was harder than it should have been. Now then, we'll just feed that back through a little bit. Just to get the tension off of it. There we go. One thing to note when you're working on this, these arms only are supposed to go up so far. When you're working on this thing and you push these arms up, it may seem like you can go further, but don't. There are two nuts on two studs on this cam that hold this cam in place. This cam is what's holding this ram shaft on the inside the housing. I think the arms will go much further once this housing is off. I think these arms will push on forward. What I was trying to do was give myself some extra room. So I was just pushing on forward, and I heard a big old snap. And I had snapped off one of these studs. That's what actually prompted me to have to remove this whole thing off of here last year, just so I could replace one stud. Oh, it was a learning experience, that is for sure. Don't push these any further than about where they're sitting right now. All right, I just want to show you guys something here. You see this cam? Talked about it a little bit before. This cam moves up and down with these arms. So what I'll do is I'll show you that. I do have it latched over here. What I'll do is I'll hold this, undo the latch, and let you watch. Do you see how this height control push rod is coming up as the arms come down? Like so. Let's keep it latched just for now. Ooh. There we go. What I'll do first is I think I'll remove this that operates this cable. It's a 1/2 inch socket, 1/2 inch bolt head. It is. See that sleeve in there? You got a bolt, washer, sleeve. Just slides out of the hole. That is separate and comes out. All right, and once that's disassembled on the 990s, you can just pull that right out. It's a little O-ring that keeps it in the side here, in that little hole right there. And then you have the whole cable. This is a new cable from David Brown Parts. The old cable broke right here. I should probably have this thing in TCU. TCU is to the right, I think. Little lever, the selector lever up at the top, operates a piece here that slides under each position. So if it's under nothing, it's in TCU. If it's under the height control push rod, it's in height control. And if it's under depth control over here, it'll be under depth control. I think all that's left to do is unbolt it. One bolt holding it on, apparently. Remember this, there is a spring in there and it is under spring pressure. So keep your hands fairly clear. Go ahead and take that out. Height control push rod. The spring. And the housing itself. And out of the bottom, dropped the depth control push rod. Treat everything in this cavity right here as if it is priceless and it is impossible to get new. Treat it with the utmost care. Don't sue me if all this screws up for you. I am not responsible for your screw ups. When you're going to remove this left-hand cover for the ram cylinder, this thing gets in the way. What I do is I latch it in place, if your latch works. I flip this up out of the way so you can loosen these bolts at least, and then start to remove those. Flip this back down and unlatch it, because as soon as you take this off, this latch isn't going to work anymore. The big bolts are through bolts, and they are 15/16. The little bolts down at the bottom here are 3/4. There are nuts on the other side of these 4 bolts. Maybe I should be using impact sockets. Eye protection might be needed here. Oh, there we go. All right, those are loose. Now, I will take this and move it back down. And let that back down. Okay, let's just do the bottom one since that's what I got on there. That bottom one does have a mounting bracket for a wiring harness. When you disassemble this, be prepared. About 1/4 of oil will drip out from the bottom of this housing right here. There's no gasket between this and the other side. It is a machined fit, so be prepared. There will be some oil drop out. 1/4 or so of oil is held in this cover. Long bolt on the bottom. Another long bolt on the bottom. You see how this ram shaft is now loose. There we go. Like I said, these are long bolts going all the way through. Put the long bolt on the top. All right. Now that one's out. Yeah, stick one of those long bolts up through the top holes so that you got some clearance there, and a handle. And it comes out. On the end of the housing here, there's a sealing disc that just pops right off. All right, it's out. Good deal. You see how when it comes out, this whole shaft moves? It comes out of the housing here. That's why having this PTO housing in place is a good idea. I think I am going to take out the ram cylinder this time. I did not change the O-ring that goes around the ram cylinder between it and the housing the last time I was in here, but I think I will this time. All right, now we've got the left-hand ram cylinder cover over here on the bench. you can see that it has got quite a bit of oil in it left over. Clean that out. It has a half of a bearing on this side of it. There's no bearing over here because it is actually still on the tractor here. It's a one-piece bearing, I think. That stays in place. The latch mechanism, see if I can get this to operate. When you turn the handle, it pops the latch out. Turn the handle back up, pops the latch back in. I do need to take this apart, and I'll do this in another video. But Barry's got a video on this as well, on taking and disassembling this stuff right here. There's an O-ring back there that I need to change out because this thing leaks pretty badly from right here. There's an O-ring at the back of this. There's a that shaft goes right through there, and there's an O-ring right in here that leaks pretty bad. So I'll get that addressed, and you'll get to see how annoyingly aggravating this one will be for that, because this right here is a dirt excluder ring, and it was absolutely chock full of dirt. Do you see the irony in that? Dirt excluder ring full of dirt. Yeah, it's not lost on me either. So yeah, this thing was bent to high heavens and back. It was very much out of shape. I had to beat on this quite a bit to get the snap ring right here on top, this locking ring, back in the groove it's supposed to be in. Very annoying. But I may go through that in another video. But Barry's is probably the best one to show how all of this is reassembled. So I think I've got a system sort of figured out here for the load leveler and getting it in the hoist here and getting it hooked up to this arm. I've got a bunch of straps, used 2 of them. Did a test fit on this and it seems to work okay. I just hope it'll do it safely. You need something in the lift high enough to get it up and over the arm, the lever right here. Tried taking this off when I had the PTO housing off, but I couldn't drive that pin out enough, and I was just like, you know what? It's not broke, so I'm not going to try to fix it. You can also see right here a better view, I think, for you guys of how this fits up in there. And when you remove that left-hand cover, this whole arm kind of tilts out a little bit. You know, our friend gravity loves to pull things down. All right, let's move this in and see if we can get it back in its hole. Held up with the straps. It's one of the experiments I want to do here. See if it'll hold it in place. It does. You see it's back in the slot here. So what that tells me is that it's probably a really good idea to have some hoist or something holding up on this arm before you take this cover off, so the bolts don't get bound up. Yeah, keeping a strap on it, keeping some pressure back this way, that'll keep that up and in its housing. Yeah, these are required putting that cover back on. It's going to make that job a lot easier. Learning as we go, we're discovering new things. All right, these bolts are 3/4. Just leave a couple of threads on just for insurance. I'll take these lower bolts out first. This lower bolt on the right side has another mounting bracket for the wiring harness to travel through. Also has an anti-shake washer on it. It's a short bolt. When I did this manually, I actually slid this housing in first and then manhandled My son and I manhandled this shaft into the opening right here by hand. I did not reassemble this thing back as a whole piece. I did it the right hand housing first, and then slid this in, hammering on this end with a ball peen hammer. I may have messed up the bearings inside of here. That's another reason I want to take this back apart, because I've been worried about it ever since. And I want to attempt a reinstallation as a whole piece, just like everybody says it's supposed to go back on. Second bolt, same as the first on the bottom. Straight proof washer. Moment of truth. Figure out if these straps have got any stretch on them. These bolts are longer. Long bolts go on top. They also have shake-proof washers. I think that's what these are called, are shake-proof washers. These little star washer things. If that's not the right thing to call those, please correct me down in the comments below. Again, this is all a learning process for me. I'm gonna leave you zoomed out like that so we can see the removal, and I'm gonna go grab my son. This is my son Thomas. Say hi. Hey. He's going to help me to make sure that this part right over here slides out the way it's supposed to. So basically the same thing we did last time. Make sure nothing catches. And we'll get started on the removal. Hey, Thomas, watch right here. As this thing separates and comes back, you should see separation start to happen right here between this housing and the axle. Is it moving back there? Huh? Yeah. Has it got a crack in it? All right, you see that separation right there? That's where that cam and everything connects on the inside. You got to be very careful. You're pulling this thing back. All right, I'm pulling too much on this side. I need to push back in over there. It's my head that I just hit. I need to let it down. Did you hear that fall? Those of you watching, that was the lube pipe that I forgot to wire up. That was the lube pipe that fell down in the axle. We'll have to fish that out. But we are off. You remember how hard this was last time? How much we struggled? It was a 5-minute job with this. That's it? That's it, buddy. Thank you, my son. Appreciate it. There's the valve chest coming out. Brian newbie, if you're watching this, this is your spool valve and it's stuck on your 990. That's what I've got to get out. That's what I've got to figure out on yours down home. That right there is what's stuck on your tractor. Okay, I can't go any further back there. And now I've got to lift it up to clear this. So this thing's going to have to tilt to come up. Man, I should have took that off. It just wouldn't come off though. I beat on it and beat on it and beat on it and it wouldn't come off. I'll say a prayer. I don't like the way this looks. Oh, I'm caught right here. There's the shaft that connects to the hydraulic cylinder is caught on the lip of the hydraulic cylinder itself. I'm not going to call the name of that I've seen online because it's kind of crude. Still hanging up over here on the left. Look at there, we're out. I need to quickly get this thing shifted. As you saw, as soon as I took it out, it nosedived over there. As soon as I got all the weight off and everything unhung over here. Oops. This is a comedy of errors. How about right there? Are you happy now? Are you going to stay put? Please? Ooh. I forgot to put down a mat. When you take this off, there will be oil that comes out of this. This is a valve chest. It's full of hydraulic oil. So there will be oil that comes out of this valve chest and drips on the ground. So have something down there to absorb it. Some paper towels. One of those pig mats, perhaps. And it's all over the wheels of my lift. All right, that is straight up and down. That is straight up and down. Good. I'm going to continue to try to get that leveled out. This is the rod that connects to the hydraulic piston inside. There's nothing holding it. It goes into the concave part of the piston. And this ring around it got hung up on the wall of the cylinder cover, wall on the cylinder, and on the top lip of the cover here coming out. That's what you saw hanging it up. All right, let's get this thing moved over. Oh, the struggles of moving all this around. All right, I'm gonna have to jack it up higher. You do not know how happy it makes me that this process worked. Until I get this housing removed off, I'm leaving this thing all connected and everything so I can move things up and down, left, right, whatever I need to in order to get this thing separated off. I'm not gonna hurt myself by trying to manhandle that. It's just not gonna happen. There's no reason I can't leave it just connected right there, just like you see it. All right, let's get this cam disconnected. This first stud. Oh, there we go. Yeah, let me see if I can get my fingers in there. I think there is a couple of washers on this. Yeah. All right, we've got the nut off. Have you guys noticed or been angry with me when I continually call nuts bolts and bolts nuts? Doing these videos, thinking about what you're trying to do and talk about what you're doing, it's not an easy thing. Constantly correcting yourself. All right. 2 washers. Oh yeah, there we go. Sorry, my hand's all up in your way. Maybe I screwed it up and put 2 washers on 1 bolt, on 1 stud. Oh well. There's the cam plate. It goes with this little divot part facing down, so yeah, it's kind of a sharp edge, and at least on this one, and a little bit more of a rounded edge on that. Sharp edge goes to the end of the shaft. Making some notes here. And that should be a good view for you there of the end of that shaft. It should slide right out now. And this housing should come right off. We hope. Let's lift it up and see what happens. Let's experiment just a bit. Just a bit. Look at there. Told you it'd come right out. Oh look, there's an O-ring that I need to replace. All I did last time was replace one of these studs and put the whole thing right back in. All right. Yes, that came off. Good decision, really good decision leaving this thing hooked up. Oh wow. I need to go back to the right quite a bit. Now, what will I do with you? Yeah, I think I'll slide it back under the tractor. The camera out of the way, sorry. See how dark it got? You see the lube pipe? It fell down in there. I forgot to tie it up, so I'm gonna reach down in there and grab it before it goes any further. Yeah. There's the lube pipe. It goes in, the end of it goes right there into that. We're done with the process of getting the valve chest out. I've got the shaft over there sitting on the tractor. You just saw me put that over there. I'm happy with how this all came out. The lube pipe, you saw me fish it out of the tractor. It actually fits just quickly. You see this hole right here on the side of the valve chest? The lube pipe actually fits right there. It kind of comes across the top of the chest there, and that bolt that's on the outside of the axle casing presses against it right there, holding it in place. So that's how that works. I'm happy with this. I'm happy with how it all came out. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe down below. If you see anything that I did incorrectly or you'd like to give me feedback on, please make a note down in the comments below. I love reading those comments from you guys, and they are very helpful. So I hope this was useful to you. Hope it was semi-entertaining and not a complete bore. This is something I've been wanting to do for quite some time, is video this and put it all in one video, beginning to end. Thanks for watching, everybody. I really appreciate it if you've stayed with me.